This is the Orioles Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Baltimore Orioles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Beltway Series, Game 1, have the Orioles coming out looking like little bro to the Washington Nationals. Final score tonight, Washington 7, Baltimore 0. Good evening, and thank you for joining me here on this Tuesday night. My name is Luke Slaybaugh. I am the postgame show host here at the Locked On Orioles podcast. These are known as postcasts. I'm with you after every Baltimore Orioles game this season, breaking down the game, giving you instant reaction in lieu of the postgame show, listening to your comments, and giving you instant feedback. Connor Newcomb still runs the show. He's here 5 days a week with his take. If you want to wait for him, go ahead. But if you support this show, you support his by proxy. Everyone goes home happy, except Baltimore. They are shut out for the third time this season at the hands of left-hander Mitchell Parker and the Washington Nationals.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Either Mitchell Parker is the second coming of Cy Young, or we have a serious problem here. Yes, as we can tell, and as we've known already in April, Baltimore has the second worst batting average against Southpaws in the majors, 184, and that is just above the Minnesota Twins' horrendous 141. That's inexplicable. But Parker, to his credits, had the outing of a lifetime. He hit his spots, didn't give up hard contact over 8 scoreless innings, stayed off the barrel, and was nibbling the strike zone. Induced a lot of pop-ups on the infield and got the Orioles hitters to hit underneath the baseball. They never figured him out, just as they have not figured out the several left-handers that they have faced throughout this season so far. Chris Bubich, for example, in the Kansas City series. Left-handers are giving the Orioles a lot of trouble. There was 2/3 of a perfect game in here, bro. Mitchell Parker retired the last 17 batters he faced. The approach to start the game was semi-promising in the first and the third inning in particular. We'll go with the third frame. Jackson Holliday walks, which I'm going to talk about in the second block. Cedric Mullins singles. And then with one out in the inning, two pitch at-bats from Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, lazy flyouts and pop-outs to end the inning. And that was all she wrote. Left-hander Colin Poche tried to gift the O's some runs in the top of the ninth with back-to-back walks to lead off the inning, but with a 7-run cushion, not a whole lot the Orioles could do. Time for tonight's turning point.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
When Dean Kremer was announced as the starting pitcher, I'm kidding. Right-hander Dean Kremer, one of these days, is going to learn how to get outs in April, but it ain't in 2025. Had a promising start where he went more than 5 innings last week against the Guardians, but now it's in the rear view. Career ERA over 6 in the first month of the season, March and April combined. The O's have 4 comeback wins to their credit, but there's no point in crossing your fingers when you get behind the 8 ball this far, this fast. He was pulverized. Came out rusty in the bottom of the first, was locating high and over the plate, and so James Wood leading off hits a double to the opposite field, and then a 2-run homer to Nathaniel Lowe. Cutter ran right into the barrel. This was a difficult game for Kremer. Seems to lack the sense of craft with 2 strikes. There was a stat thrown out by Masson on the broadcast tonight, that Orioles pitchers are giving up a 632 OPS to opposing hitters when there are 2 strikes in the count compared to a league average 503. I will break this down in even more simple terms. A 240 batting average allowed against hitters when Orioles pitchers are ahead in the count, by far the worst in baseball, at the bottom of the barrel. Final line for Dino, 5 1/3, 6 runs, 5 of them earned. There was a throwing error attributed to Cedric Mullins, which, not Cedric's fault. 4 strikeouts, 2 home runs, and 11 hits. You'll see in the rundown graphic we have here, Dean Kremer did make history tonight, and no, not in a good way. Per Masson, The 8 extra base hits given up by Dean Kremer are the most by an O's starter ever in the history of the franchise, dating back to 1954. A little bit more trouble for Kremer in that second inning, and a chance where he was able to settle down. Gave up this triple. The approach by Heston Kjerstad in left field was not ideal. Allowed the ball to tail away from him, but there was a little bit of kick to that. Ended up being a triple for Jose Tena, and he would then score on a wild pitch on an ensuing batter. The next 2 frames for Dean were good, but as we've seen, when he runs into any sort of adversity, things start to spiral, and the 5th inning was just like that. Gave up 2 runs there. The scoring summary, very much a single from Luis Garcia, allowing James Wood to score. The throwing error by Cedric Mullins was a matter of Gunnar Henderson not covering second base, thinking that the throw was going to come home, but no one was set up on the pitcher's mound to take that feed, so the ball just kind of went aimlessly away. And then Keibert Ruiz, former Dodgers top prospect, a Tulsa driller, a legend in Tulsa, hit an RBI single as well that scored Garcia, made it a 5-0 ball game, and ergo out of reach. Coming up, we talked about the struggles versus lefties. And as we look at this Beltway series just 40 minutes down the pike, are there lessons to be learned in how the Nationals construct their lineups and treat their prospects? I want you to think about that. And I mentioned I'm going to tease a little bit about Jackson Holliday. Interesting phenomenon in his approach to the plate. And that's all coming up after this break. I want to thank you again for joining me here on the Locked On Orioles postcast. My name is Luke Slabaugh. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. NBA playoffs are in full swing. They're going on right now. The Thunder are playing. The Pacers, Los Pacers, beating up on the Bucks. And tonight, if you stay up late, I'm not. I'm going to bed right after this. Lakers and Timberwolves. Why not? FanDuel wants you to get in on the action, and you sure should. Right now, when you join FanDuel, place your first $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. So don't miss out. You can head on over to FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Worth mentioning that the NHL playoffs are also in full swing, and we need those St. Louis Blues to rally, beat up on Winnipeg, former Atlanta Thrashers. Wild. Thanks to FanDuel for sponsoring this show. All right, wrapping up here for a few more minutes here on the Locked On Orioles postcast. My name is Luke Slabaugh, your post-game reaction host after every Orioles game. Connor Newcomb still runs the main show. You get 2 episodes per week. Deal with it. Nationals beat the O's 7-0. It got me thinking midway through this game as I kept my eyes open. The O's and Nats rebuilds just barely grazed each other in 2021. Didn't overlap a whole lot. And by all accounts, the O's should be far ahead, off to greatness and glory in the postseason, rather than Davey Martinez's squad in Navy Yard. And yet, tonight's a 1-game sample size. We've seen these teams play hyper-competitive series. I was at that game, I believe it was last year, that went 12 innings, this back and forth affair, hitting home runs and extras, and I think it was Gunnar who had the game winner, 7-6. They showed a replay of that tonight on the MASN broadcast, and it's extraordinary. Time flies when you're having fun. But what I took away from this game in a silo was how Davey Martinez puts his young, unproven players in a position to fail, and they will rise to meet the occasion. James Wood is a former 5-tool prospect and is going to have a stellar, shining career. If we learned anything tonight, the way he's able to manufacture runs, but doing it at the top of the order and hitting leadoff. That's an unconventional choice, and I challenge you and ask, would Brandon Hyde do the same thing? Yeah, he had Gunnar Henderson hitting leadoff, but Gunnar's had success already in the past. Is it worth and hear me out on this, even more tinkering with the trajectory of this season kind of in limbo. Now looking at 4 games under 500. The conventional wisdom would say, with someone so new and fresh to the league, and he's still getting his bearings under him, James Wood is, that they would, jam him into the 6 hole, try to protect him and give him, a second inning at bat. They didn't platoon him. They didn't baby him. They said full on, you need to get at bats. You're going to get as many as possible. I wonder if someone like Jackson Holliday could benefit from this type of approach. Even Heston Kjerstad. Has he hit anywhere else than 6, 7? I don't know how this season rather is going to end up here in 2025. Even think of tonight's starter for the Nationals. Left-hander Mitchell Parker got a lot of runway last year to mixed results, and it's paying dividends early on in this season. He looks more refined, and sharp, and precise than ever. I would say when it comes to the young players on this team, let Brandon Hyde tinker. Let him give Heston Kjerstad some different looks. Let him give Jackson Holliday some looks on the condition that they play every single day. It was good to see them in the lineup tonight against lefty. And Jackson Holliday, actually, we've seen the progress in these small sample sizes. Over the last week, we've seen the walk rate jump from 2% to 7.7. Not bad at all. It is a small silver lining in this otherwise gray cloud on this otherwise beautiful day in the DMV. Same goes for Adley, Westberg, Gunnar. Stop giving them the random day off, especially after they've had wonderful days at the plate. That was the first knock against Hyde this season, was when Westberg had that 2 home run game in Toronto. Next game, nowhere to be seen. And of course, we don't know everything. Could have been a slight bump or bruise or nick or injury, but say let the kids play. Nationals are doing that right now. They have a well-earned win tonight, 7-0 over the Baltimore Orioles. I suggested on Easter Sunday's heinous 24-2 postcast that Charlie Morton should probably figure out whatever issues he has in the bullpen. And I think we're starting to see those gears turn a little bit in the machine. Right-hander Brandon Young was recalled from AAA Norfolk after being promptly set down so they could get reinforcements in the bullpen in the form of Cody Poteet. And Cody Poteet's shoulder did not cooperate. He has right shoulder inflammation after a shaky outing in the finale against the Cincinnati Reds. It's interesting that Brandon Hyde said going into this series that we're going to get through these 3 games and then figure out the rotation, because the O's have been going with the 4-man so far. And next in line in that 4-man, right-hander Tomoyuki Sagano, gunning for his 3rd win on the season, 2-1 with a 3.43 ERA. He goes up against a fun little story in right-hander Trevor Williams, former Chicago Cub and Pittsburgh Pirate legend. Limited last year to 13 starts, had a right flexor strain that limited him, but a 2.03 ERA in that very small sample size. This year, he is back to the Trevor Williams that the league is most familiar with. He's given up a 3.25 batting average to opponents, 1-2 with a 5.95 ERA. We'll go through some of the comments here with a couple minutes left here on the Locked On Orioles postcast. Oximity on YouTube. If you're watching live on YouTube, thank you. If you're watching on the replay, go ahead and comment. Let me know where you're watching from. Thoughts, questions, concerns. Leave a comment, a review, a rating, wherever you get your podcasts as well. This is the Locked On Orioles postcast. Oximity says, at least we have Cedric Mullins for now. Jeff Molnar says, I agree with all your points, Luke. You get extra credit. Zach James, another regular on this show, says, Luke, it's getting real hard to watch this team. What are some positives that I can think about? I think the Jackson Holliday batter's eye, like the actual recognizing balls out of the pitcher's hand, is a positive. It will not show in real world results for a while, but it's there. Julian Taylor also chimes in, no player or pitcher can help this team. Their confidence is gone. Tony was the spark plug. Tony Taters hit 40 home runs last year and apparently was not given a competitive offer to return until it was way too late. That's unfortunate. Let's see what else we got. Looking through comments here on the Locked on Orioles postcast. Postcast. Oh, yes. A very good point that I should check out. KP33X. When the team does absolutely nothing of consequence after losing 24-2, losing 7-0 on one hit is about what you'd expect. A one-hitter at the hands of Mitchell Parker. And a couple extra base runners there in the ninth. Colin Poche did his best. Joe Radke, giving the haters a voice, says, stop doing these after shows. They, and I believe he means the Orioles, but he could also be referring to me, stink since you started. I can't disagree with that. Correlation and causation, my friend, are two very different things. And yes, Jeff Molnar says Holiday is balling out at second base. It's good to hear Brian Roberts' perspective on Jackson Holiday's approach playing second base. Not an easy position at the big league level or any level, and yet has the workings of a potential future Gold Glover. And KP33X responds, Holiday does look more settled. That is going to be our solace tonight. Thank you to all the people watching here live. Leave a comment, leave a review. Let us know what you think about the show, what you think about the season. My name is Luke Slabaugh. Again, Connor Newcomb has the main show 5 days a week. He'll have his reaction post-haste. And for now, I'm wishing you all a very good night, as tomorrow it'll be the Orioles and the Nationals one more time. Actually, the second game of a 3-game series. But you know what I meant. Final score, Washington Nationals 7, Baltimore Orioles 0. Thanks so much. Have a good night. Be safe. I'll see you here tomorrow.